today's Minute Apes, I've got to ignite this damn engine, and I've got 4 remotes, and I can't figure out which remote works. I think it's the Apple one, but I keep pressing these stupid buttons. And my husband, who does all the remotes, is out of fucking town.
Divine bomb. They are the gentlemen and the gentlemen. There is fire, there is smoke. Now, fight like a minute of Apes. A minute of the Apes. A minute of the Apes. A minute of the Apes. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. And yet again, this board kicks me in the balls right when Richard's talking. It wasn't you.
I was going to say, yeah.
I looked over and I'd set a level on something, and I look over and play back. It was like, and I was like, this
is a poor craftsman who blames his tools.
No, it is
Shit.
It is too many
Rude.
too many years of doing this shit where you're just like, fuck it, the equipment, what can you do? So happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
I've got some more bubble gum for the board. Hang on a second. Here,
Yeah, that truly, there are so many times when you're actually in live production that things it can be working, and then for no reason. And of course, I think I've even said this before. The engineers, I'm sure you remember this. We'd call the engineer over and it'd be like, "It works."
It's where, yeah.
It didn't 2 seconds ago. So
I swear.
it was like I literally looked at it and it was great.
My car makes this noise. I take it to the shop. It doesn't make that noise. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we are at Tuesday. We are with Minute 92. Does anyone have anything they need to say to start Tuesday off? Or can we jump to this exciting minute with remote controls and booms?
I'm telling you, he starts struggling with that remote, and all I could think is, Chris, grab that. Fix that for him. Fix that remote.
I'm glad to know in your relationship, Chris is the version of me, because Shelly will, Todd, it's not working. It's like,
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
first thing, have you checked the batteries? That is always what I say to
Always
Shelly.
for me. Which remote are we using?
Well, there is that. Doesn't everybody own like 8 fucking remotes that sit on your coffee table and command different things?
Yeah.
Remember where they tried to like get universal remotes as
yeah.
a popular thing for a while, and it kind of worked a little bit, but not really.
If you bought because I bought like
Really
the nice one,
high-end
the Logitech made them to where basically you taught it a macro, sort of like what you were talking about last time, about the efficiency of doing a task and making it sweet. So it would say, turn, if I hit this button and I want to watch TV, turn, and it would do it. But they're so fucking expensive at that point. I don't know if they even still sell those. I don't see them anymore. But yeah, they can be. Fine, we're going to get the weeds for 2 seconds. I end up buying a Roku TV for my elderly parents, thinking, because Roku's really fucking smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I should have known if anybody's going to break it, it's my parents, and it's still my mom. We're trying to watch HBO. And it doesn't work. Well, what the fuck did you do?
What do you mean
inevitably
it doesn't work?
Inevitably, my dad, whose memory is not the best, gets frustrated and says sign out, and signs out, and everything doesn't work. So, yes, we all struggle with remotes, and yes, there are too many of them. Make our lives easier, please, technology people.
I mean, we could have, go back to the era when we would turn a dial on the knob of the television to get to a channel.
Get up.
But it wasn't the knob that worked. It was the fact that you had to move the antenna
that's
around to finally get the signal every so often.
And then the one person would be tasked with just standing there.
Yeah.
You can't move because you're completing the television
But they
circuit.
still had knobs to change it to the actual channel.
Yeah.
Right? But you still had to tune it in.
I remember those remotes back with those TVs when you first got them. They were like one big block and had 2 buttons on them. And when you did it, you'd hear conk, conk,
Change the
conk, conk,
channel, yeah.
as it actually changed it.
I had one of my babysitters had one of those very, very long cable box style things, and they had physical buttons. You would press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a literal switch is tapping and igniting as you do it, and you could flip it to an A and B, and then go to the second tier of channels. I don't know. Just
We're all 3 old enough to remember those eras. The younger listeners are thinking, what?
When video games only had 1 button.
Hey,
That's another thing I'm going to share with y'all remind me old video games for in between.
All right.
Let's get to the remote control in this one.
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
Minute 92, Sean, tell us what's going on.
All right, we're going to start minute 92 with Davidson joining the other humans and end with the humans waiting.
All right, here we come. Minute 92 Marky Mark fumbles with remote controls.
Come on. Come on. Wait.
As minute 92, we have an Oberon's worth of ape and humans, 2 displaced pods worth of humans and apes, so many wild humans and Ape City minus 2 gorillas. Humans on the loose, and the first wave has been sent in.
All right. We begin with Marky running right to left. He pulls out his weird, now that is a remote control, his multifaceted device in his hand. The monkey's coming in. Marky keeps trying to hit a remote activate. Then we cut to a shot of the fuel cells being depleted, which I'm not really sure I understand why and how they're depleted unless that's somehow funneling the fuel to that. Anyway, we see that shot. We see the monkeys running in. We see the shot of the depleted again. Monkeys run in, and in a big-ass explosion, we see monkeys start flying. Mark goes down to cover himself. Our ape army is shrieking. Our humans are shrieking. In my favorite shot of this movie so far, at 17 seconds, we see bodies of chimps flying through the air.
This little tiny...
We have multiple shots of things on fire, bodies falling to the side. Thade looking, he is shocked. A reverse angle, nice shot through the ape army as they see the massive amount of an explosion, and those bodies just
So
fly.
many bodies.
Hundreds of feet in the air.
If this were a good movie, this would probably be my favorite part.
I would
of
have
the
been
movie.
cheering in the
I'm like,
theater. I'm like, yeah!
So we see the ape bodies being flung down, our ape army reacting, the fuel running out as the flames peter out from the engine, which, okay, we got to get to the weirdness of the proximity of the engine and where they've been running in and out of.
Yeah, we'll get there. Hang on.
So then a wave of dust comes over the ape army as they try to understand. The horses whinny. We get back and forth between Thane and Atar as they look. And then in what is probably the funniest shot of this movie, Marky Mark gets him a peek over the edge and goes, "Wait." And then we get Estella reacting.
He peeks over that ridge. I'm expecting to go, "Precious, where's my precious?"
It does feel like those
Smeagol,
moments.
yeah.
That's right. Whenever he would come over the crest and look for them. So we begin with the fumbling of the remote.
I mean,
This
come
is
on,
probably
get it
one of the
ready to
most
go. Yeah.
age-old things in movies.
Trying to start your car.
Well,
won't
let's
start.
talk about his weird prance over the rocks. Just go back for the very half a second. He's like stumbling over people to try and cover these rocks, and it is just a really silly, prancy kind of like. There's no reason for him to like
Running that
giddy
far
up around this to press the remote.
Yeah, I'm watching.
Let me get closer. Let me get closer. Is it in range?
Is it a proximity issue?
It was really weird.
Yeah,
I get you want to show action, but his run down is awkward. It was just unnecessary.
it is.
He's got the magic remote that, I mean, obviously we have phones that can do anything,
Right.
but we have interfaces that make it do different things. His just opened up and
Has
he
a
has a
button,
remote
yeah.
and remote activating, and I was waiting for it to say remote initializing, please wait, and then see a status bar going longer and longer and longer, and then maybe go backwards a little bit, then longer and longer.
He's gonna get the little circle dial.
Were this to be a multifaceted thing, we have apps, like you said. He needed to preload this in a moment before, and it could be the smallest of inserts where he goes, hang on, just, something like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ding, I have it, and all I have to do is push this button.
The constant pressing of it is just the obnoxious thing about it, because really he should be watching a meter build, press a button, watch your meter build. No, he has to press it maybe one more time once it's built to a particular point. But I mean, they didn't have technology the way we have it today,
Right.
So they weren't thinking of these same type of things. You know, he didn't get the little click wheel that's like spinning circle around a little. He got a little bit of it, but
No, but this was 23 years ago. We had computers that had status bars back then. Come on.
yeah.
That's not a new concept.
And you also, I think back to Spielberg hiring a futurist for Minority Report. And that was a very big thing that he was like, I want this technology to be the next step you think we can actually get to in the next 20, 30 years. Why aren't you hiring just somebody that can tell you these things?
I mean,
simply?
it wouldn't. I mean, honestly, you could literally just sit in your backyard and
I mean, hell, we had
hang out and have a beverage and talk about what this future would be like, and have some
Right.
really great ideas for this.
we had kind of dumb smartphones 23 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, I mean,
Enough that they
Yeah.
should have been able to figure out what's coming next.
Yeah.
So then we get to the whole thing with the fuel cell.
did he not
depleting.
warn the humans?
Right.
Why didn't he warn the humans that it was going to be allowed? By the way, because
Because we want their reaction and the shock of it.
Anyway,
So why do we need to see the fuel cell deplete?
I think
Well-
to show that he's only got one shot. That he can only do
But
that
I
one
found it
time.
weird. So right after this, at 9 seconds is the first time we see the fuel
Right.
cell, and then we see the explosion. I should have then seen the fuel cell depleting, explosion bursts, and then see it going like we're
Right,
running out of
correct.
fuel.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it begins its descent before that.
I mean, the meter should have said something different about loading fuel or something along those lines. Let us know. There's so I don't want to get too deep into this subject. I've got a couple things I'm curious about.
Okay.
He said the Oberon has a nuclear power source
It's pretty much infinite.
that's supposed to last forever.
Yeah.
But he's now using fuel
As
to
a-
cause as this thing. I'm curious what the nuclear power aspect is. Where is he in terms of power
Right.
on this entire ship? Can he still do functions in the ship?
That's a good point.
Because now he's just decided to use the jet. What does the nuclear cell do? Do we have any
So-
weapons with it? Do we have any life support? What do we have?
If they had both, let's think that through. They have a nuclear thing that maybe is their what is the Star Trek thing? Impulse engines.
Yeah.
It's almost like an impulse. It just sort of
They're
moves you
dilithium
along.
crystals.
Maybe the nuclear power source is an impulse engine, and
It keeps
these
it
are
keeps
fuel
the
thrusters
lights
when we
on.
need to go really fast. They need a fucking
So
like the
so-
remote setup. They need to say that.
He's using the fuel, but there's a lost opportunity with what the nuclear cells themselves can do.
Right.
Clearly, it maybe recharged his remote because he's been away for so long. I don't know,
I agree
There's
with
just
you
some stuff
totally.
left on the table that I'm kind of curious about. I
All right,
mean,
can we
I think there's been stuff left on the table in this fucking movie
Yeah.
across
All
the
right.
board.
can we talk about also how?
I don't know. Can we?
Hey,
Thank you.
there we go.
well, okay, so we'll start with the explosion, right?
Well,
So where do you want to
Well,
start?
that's what I was gonna say. Part of it is we've set up some shots in here get really messy because we set up that our army is on the left and our humans are on the right. And so our army is charging in from the left,
Oh,
unless
yeah.
they're coming in directly at the camera. But then we cut to some shots where the ape army is on the right,
Right.
Like
and
at
up against
14
some rocks and
up
not in the
against
middle of the
rocks,
field. And I don't think
we get there at 14 seconds. We get
I-
that shot, and then we get another shot just a little bit later where you'll see them all on horseback, and they'll be on the right here again. Hang on, sorry.
Yeah, but I want go back. One of the things, and it was what
There,
Sean and I
at 30 seconds. Again,
Sean and I disagreed early on about that shot where it was approaching something, and Chris Christopherson was on right side of the screen, and suddenly it flipped its screen direction. They've had multiple screen direction issues in this movie, and this is one of the worst. I agree. But they're looking. I'm like, what? You've not.
because we have not set up like that the humans are surrounded. If somehow you were trying to say the humans are surrounded by these apes, but no, we said they are on our screen
Right.
left, but now we're putting them on screen right.
and they've all entered into the battle zone, if you will,
from that
So
direction.
the random shot of them all in the line up against a rock surface,
yeah, just it's strange.
even if it were coming from the other direction, doesn't make any sense because they weren't there. They're in the middle of the battlefield. They're not up against
Right.
a rock structure.
Yeah.
If we saw them flee to the rock structure,
right.
like they're trying to get coverage, that would work. But otherwise, they're just reacting along rock coverage where they're not even on rock
If
coverage.
you're going to do this, you have to do what's called moving the line. So to that point, if you're screen left and you want them to screen right, what do? You do a shot that pivots around them so that you're changing that line of sight. I thought the same thing, Sean. I was like, I don't know where anybody is anymore.
Yeah.
Now, to what you've told me before, now the ape army is part
Behind
of.
him.
It was with the Oberon.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling me visually. It's fucked
Twice
up.
now. Twice they did it. First with the people reacting. The second with the
With the
actual
horses.
with Atar and Thade
At
are
30
now on the
seconds,
wrong
yeah.
side.
And also, if you're the editor, you have to see this. And do you know how you fix that?
You
You
flip
take
it.
the film and flip it, and suddenly they're on the right side of the frame.
They're not wearing shirts with logos. You don't
No.
have letters on
But
it.
I mean,
so-
how sloppy is this?
Yeah. Horrible.
I mean, we've got some really fun stuff of bodies flying, flames going, but that is just really, really sloppy.
Okay,
Where- was it-
technically, I'm looking at this real quick. So we've got the Oberon right. We explode with the explosion going left. The bodies fly left. They're all laying down. We get a neutral shot of Thade.
Uh-huh.
Technically, we are now negating the line of direction. Technically,
all right.
And then we even get a neutral return shot over their shoulders. So we're changing it. But but then we go back to the
But then you're
bodies
gonna-
falling
yeah,
left. So
yeah.
we're reestablishing it. And why?
Yeah.
Why do I need to do it's awful.
Yeah, I don't even know why we need this.
And then we
particular
go to
moment.
back to about like at 40 seconds, you see a shot again, or 38 seconds, a shot again of that army up against a rock wall. I just don't understand.
Yeah, that one I really don't understand.
All right.
And then when we go back after that, just while we talk screen direction, so we've got the Oberon. We reestablish Oberon as its fuel burns out. Then we go to that shot that Sean mentioned of the dust cloud going to the ape army against a rock wall, a neutral shot of a gorilla trying to see through, and once again, then Thade and Atar are on the left with their action moving left right.
Again, it's just all confusing. It doesn't make sense.
Maybe they wanted that because you do kind of break rules occasionally.
Then you started breaking it when the army
Agreed.
started attacking. It should have been confusing from that point and
Right.
cut it in more with when Marky Mark is trying to save the kid.
You go back to, and I hate to be, let's talk film history, but Godard famously broke the idea that action had to be in continuity's sake in Breathless when he was like, I'm looking at it, and why does that character have to walk all the way across the street? So literally you see the character walk out of the building, and in the same shot, they jump cut, and they're over by their car. But to your point, he started that pretty early on in the film. He's like, this is my
This is
language I'm
how
going
I'm
to
gonna
use.
tell it, yeah.
And if you start that up there, then I start to go, okay, fine with you. But this
Supposed
is
to be
so
confusing. Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
jarring that I don't even know who I'm looking at anymore.
Can we talk about the
Yes.
rocks?
Okay, well,
We
Can
can.
we talk about? So there are two different scenes where we have the apes like lie to the ground, and they have these all same size rocks just kind of tumble into the
True.
scene, not unlike they just went to Michael's and just bought a bunch of rocks.
I'm sorry. We need about 3,000 rocks. Could you help us out?
Well,
We've got this styrofoam you can chip away into
and
that.
the rocks roll in such a way that looks really, really natural. They don't really fall; they just kind of roll. So
Well,
I thought we suddenly went to the labyrinth, and we had Ludo has the rocks, and the rocks roll. I thought it was the Ludo character
I mean,
from
you just
from
think
Labyrinth.
about it in real life, though. It's these people in monkey outfits that are just flopping down on the ground while people just out of camera range are just
Throwing
lightly
some
tossing
rocks. Yeah,
over
exactly.
there.
It was a day trip for the fourth graders at
Throw the rocks.
Arbor Elementary, and they
Throw the
decided to come
rocks
out and
at
be a
the
part
apes.
extras. Yeah,
Have
exactly.
fun.
And what I find really irritating with that very shot, it's a two shot at about 26 seconds is where it begins. Both of the monkeys fall at the exact same
and fall,
moment.
flop
It is
over.
like synchronized flopping.
Yeah.
You would hope that it would be pop,
Stagger it.
pop. And
Especially when you consider, if you look at how high some
Yeah.
of those apes went in the air. Besides the fact that it's hilarious to see all these little tiny figures flying through the air, objectively hilarious. If you're not laughing at it, you're stupid. They would be vaporized.
Well,
There would be no apes flying around. They would be dust. They would
Well,
be
if
gone.
anything, they would be heavily burned.
Burned.
Well, that's
on one
that's
side.
just it. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted this to get gruesome right here. If we're
too.
going to see them hit the ground,
you don't
I
want
wanna
to just see a shoulder on fire.
I want to see was the
Melted
costumes ripped and
skin.
torn. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it didn't have to move into like our territory, but I would have liked to at least have been a little more gruesome in terms of like,
Yeah,
just like.
but just a little smoke on a body and a little burn on a
And that's why the
shoulder.
rocks to me are kind of
Yeah.
comical in terms of the size of them.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, because something just occurred to me that I didn't even pay attention to while making notes about this. I'm going to play the minute again because I want to listen. Are there musical cues within this, or is it simply sound effect
I
cues?
think it's just sound effects.
Okay, so we're going to listen
I'm
to.
going all sound effects.
I'm going to go from the point. I'm not going to go all the way back. I want to go roughly to when the fuel cell begins to burn. Here we go.
Come on!
Is there ever a musical cue that comes back in here?
Oh,
No.
right there.
No, that's the engine sound.
Oh.
I don't think in this minute because they don't do anything in this minute. There's that.
So the
shot.
reason that's interesting to me is that it's what John Williams always
I was about to
talks
say
about.
Star Wars.
It's like there are times when the action itself is its own form of music, and I think everything within that is a practical sound that is doing all that. However, I feel like this minute needs like a build shock and then drop off. It just every time I watch it, I'm like, it's very cool and visually, I love what they've done here. That whoever created that explosion with the bodies flying had a fucking ball doing that.
So, and if to go back to physics a little bit, where the body should have been incinerated or at least burning more, there also should have been a concussive force that should have knocked the rest of the army down. I think the first time I've really started seeing stuff like that taken into effect was like the Hurt Locker, where you saw a guy trying to run away from a bomb exploding, but it wasn't enough that he got away. The actual force of the explosion liquefied his inside and killed him. There should have been people blown off their horses and all the stuff in this explosion.
It would require Marky Mark to have like a little bit of exposition talking about exactly what's about to happen. But shouldn't the Oberon itself also move?
I can see
Probably,
that. Yeah,
something, or at
That
least,
would've been fun.
or at least rattle.
Yeah, pieces
That
of
would
it
have
break
been
And
fun to
knock
have
them
the
to the
humans,
ground?
like maybe think of what they did with sand in Dune when the worms would come.
Starts
the
to suck 'em
sand
down a little bit. It
almost
liquefies.
Liquefies. It
Yeah.
does. Sand becomes almost liquid because you're vibrating it. They could have sunk into the earth, and that's a side effect you didn't know. Those kind of things would be interesting and fun. That's a great catch. That's a great catch.
I mean, there is a possible way to eject the fuel without having a.
How funny would it have been if it
movement
didn't ignite? It
forward.
was just fuel squirting out.
Now you were talking about, what? So this is where the engine shoots out. Is this where they've always been going in the engine hole to get into the space station?
Okay, that's what I don't understand, and I probably fixated on that making my notes.
I guess you think about that. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily. That would be such an enclosed space that you wouldn't have the access just kind of walk into the control room from there.
So-
I mean, unless the structure was so like, well, maybe let's assume that they were there for so long they actually kind of carved that out so they can come and go.
At 35 seconds, you can see the flame petering out, and it probably is the best view of
the
the
little
actual
engine
engine
Yeah.
area. I don't think we've seen that in previous moments when they've walked in and out. It's just been a cavern.
Yeah, because I was assuming that's where they went in.
But when you think about when we think about how the Oberon was shaped, I mean, it was basically shaped like a pen. But we had no sense that the base of it was any
an
type
engine,
of engine
yeah.
whatsoever.
No.
They could do it. A propulsion system like that would be moving up from different directions, and it was probably built in space and not launched into space without a secondary rocket. So some of this doesn't really kind of make sense in terms of that.
We'll
I
have to
mean,
look into the budgetary process that went into this and make sure that all the oversight was set properly so that the right engine.
I'll be honest that I've thought numerous times what we see here does not resemble anything of the Oberon.
No.
It doesn't evoke that. And again, if you're going to have him coming upon that, it would have been nice to have a modicum of
Recognizability.
The Oberon had a ring around it that we assume
not there, yeah.
that was
Like
we
the
assume was some
living-
type of living quarters or whatever. He had one central piece,
a spire.
a spire, right, with a what appeared to be a control deck at the top, possibly.
Yeah.
And then it kind of descended down into, I don't know, more offices or chambers or whatever, not necessarily a rocket ship. It'd be weird to see it flying as a propulsion system with that being the base and the top of the spire being at the beginning, and then the whole circular area is gone. Like, it doesn't really, now that I'm thinking about it, it doesn't really make sense.
If we want to technically do this, should we not have seen that engine burn just for a moment at the beginning of the film, just to say establish it's there?
But it doesn't even the shape of the Oberon.
But
it doesn't make sense.
In that, what I was thinking, if you did that, it would be interesting that maybe a door opened and an engine was exposed. Something like, if you'd done that and said it burned, this makes a lot more sense. But yeah, we don't see any of that.
His direction of walking from the potential propulsion system into the flight deck would suggest the flight deck is at the top of the
There's
Oberon.
our Oberon. Where's the engine? If it's going to be down here,
Sean's
if our
showing
flight
us a
deck
picture.
is...
Look at those
early on.
spires. Look at those spires down at the bottom. But that would mean the flight deck is not very deep into it.
I'm going to assume like Central Command. We're doing a great job on a podcast here explaining.
So
stuff.
let me say, Sean has found what minute is that you went back
This
to?
is minute 12.
So minute 12, it's showing the one of the pods shooting away from the Oberon.
But see, the base
Oberon
of
in
it does have the
background.
spire. It's not unlike that.
Yeah, and so the spire is actually descending downward from the living quarters. Maybe.
Yeah, because like I would assume everything happens up here, which means that what.
He walks to the base to get to the flight deck.
But
which is
why
up
would there
there.
be an engine
The
right
control
as
room.
here? I don't know.
Yeah, that would the way that you look at that and the proximity of where he's walking to the flight deck when he goes in here
It's
would
right
make
next
the
to it.
engine almost be in the middle of the lower spire.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
And especially because we see structures within this structure that we see in the shot. We see different girders and things like that extending down. So again, maybe the engine is tucked away within that and it exposes itself when they need to shoot out. That would also, though, make, since it points downward, that the Oberon would almost have to tilt so that it could go that way, right?
Right.
Maybe.
Boy, that's a weird fucking spaceship.
Well, they keep showing us like this. It would actually have to move this direction to
yeah,
fly.
that's what I was
Yeah.
getting. To what you're seeing here, what you see there, it would have to change its relationship to what it exposes itself when it's an observatory type
Right.
area. I hope that we described that as best we literally. I will say this: I am inspired by the monkeys flying, so I understand why we took this, made it a 26-minute episode
We're
for
26
us.
minutes?
We are
Wow.
we are 26 and a half. my
Hey, I've
friend.
even got a better look. Look here. This is minute what? Why can't I tell? Why won't it tell me what minute this is? Minute 5. And if you look, you can see
I can't see.
Here-
Can you go this way?
here in a second. You will see a ship fly off, and it flies off from that little middle ring. So obviously, that's where all the action's taking
Yeah.
place. And so, why is the engine so close to that? Anyway.
No idea.
So we spend probably an inordinate amount of time watching the thing peter out as everybody just kind of stands around.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was. Well, I thought it was like 10
no,
seconds.
he
of
actually
ridiculous.
tells him, wait. He says, wait. What are they waiting for? For the
Well,
apes
that's
to
when we
up
get
for
that
the next-
humorous Marky Mark.
Yeah,
Wait.
up over the crest.
And then he goes, "Come on! I've decided the scriptwriters realized you couldn't memorize more than 2 words
At a time.
at a time. Wait,
Oh, God.
come on!
Jesus.
Literally this morning when I was setting things up, waiting on you guys to get here, I was looking forward to the next film. I'm trying to think of modern storytelling, and I was trying to think of, are there going to be moments like this where we go, really, that's what the scriptwriters do? And I'm really pleased to tell you that in my memory, there will be moments. There are moments in that first film that I'm kind of like, okay, that's a little. It ain't this.
All right. So in order to kind of increase the tension, I guess we have to have Thade's horse whinny as if it's upset by what it just saw, but nobody else is reacting to it. Thought that was weird.
I thought Thade's nonplussed, if anything, it needs to be, like he needs to be angry when
That
he's
his
seeing
first wave
this.
is down.
Right,
yeah.
but I mean, we have to spend 5 seconds with his horse, like
Yeah.
rearing up briefly, and I'm like, why did we shoot that?
Yeah.
And not show anybody else's horse rearing up? Why just Thade's?
Right.
So yeah, then we get that unnecessary shot of like, we're gonna move on some rocks. Oh, there's Leo. He's looking over.
Yeah.
That was bad.
It is bad. All right. That is now 28 and a half minutes. I say we move on to tomorrow so we can actually see
get the new comic day, yeah.
results of the non-existent engine that suddenly is an engine that burns for whatever and does
Or
whatever.
how,
and no one
how does
reacts
this
to.
end? He goes, wait, and then he goes, this minute. He says, come on.
So
No, it's just, we're waiting still.
yeah, he
goes,
doesn't get to
"Wait."
come on. We
We're
get
not coming
we
on.
get,
We get the rise up of
Yeah.
Dana and the humans as they begin to stand up from the result of the explosion.
That's exactly where we are.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to say that's it. Let's move on because I'm actually excited to see how people react to the Oberon's burning of engines. So for Richard and Sean, I'm Todd. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Coming in